Candia with Sew It and Show It Workshops. Today I'm going to show you how to use your old basket liner as a template to make a new basket liner. Here's what you're going to need. For this project, I'm using a sewing machine. However, you can make this project by hand using a sewing needle and thread. You're going to need fabric, a yardstick, a pair of scissors, a seam ripper, a stick of chalk, stick pins, your basket, your liner, and once again, either your sewing machine or a sewing needle and thread. First, you want to remove your liner from your basket. And then you want to place your basket aside. And then you want to turn your liner right side down. And you want to examine how the liner looks, because this is going to determine how many pieces of fabric you're going to cut. So for example, this has a square bottom. So once I remove all the stitches here or the seams here, this may be a separate piece. And this liner may have been sewn together in 4 different pieces sewn together. So it may be one piece for one side, one piece for another side, and so forth, and then pinned together and sewn. Or it may be one large piece that went all the way around, and then a seam added, and then the bottom may have been applied. So the first thing you want to do is examine your liner, and then you want to begin removing the stitches or the seams using your seam ripper. So you just want to take your seam ripper and get it underneath that stitch and just let the little blade there cut it. And you do that all the way around, and you'll see that the fabric and the seam will unravel and the fabric will come apart. See that? So here's a few more stitches here. Be careful not to poke yourself or run right into your fingers. Okay. So this is going to be the base or the inside or the bottom part of the basket. Okay? The basket liner, that is. So what I'm going to do now is take some fabric that I'm going to use, the red and white polka dot fabric, and simply trace it out and then cut it out. Okay, so here's the inside of my basket, the bottom of the inside of my basket liner. And remember, I'm using it as a template. And what I'm going to do is simply take my chalk and I'm going to trace it all the way around. And I'm going to leave about maybe 1/4 inch for a seam allowance, or even a 1/2 inch. For me, I always like my liners a little bit larger than the basket itself. Also, that leaves me room for if something is misaligned or if it's cut a little bit crooked, I have room to go in there and correct that. Because remember, at the Sew It and Show It Workshops, we do casual sewing, so we don't always follow the rules accordingly, but we get it done. Okay, so I'm going to take a piece of chalk, and this is regular chalkboard chalk. I know that they do have regular sewing chalk, but I don't know the difference between the two, and I tell all my students that they can use regular chalkboard chalk. Maybe that's going to make some of you sewists out there cringe, but I don't really see the difference. So if there is a difference, leave it in the comments below, because I don't quite know the difference. And again, we do casual sewing in my my workshops, which means that they are fun. We don't always follow the rules, but we do get the projects done. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just simply cut this out, and I'm going to take my seam ripper and take apart the rest of the sides of this basket liner, and then I'm going to also chalk it out and cut it out, and then we'll begin sewing. so as I took out the pieces for the sides of the basket, I noticed that it does have a hem in. The basket liner actually fits in the basket this way and it folds over and it has a finished hem. What I want to point out is that you want to actually take out that seam as well, because you will also be putting a finished hem in your basket liner. So once again, just take out that finished hem along there and then cut your fabric accordingly. Okay, so I have my one piece for the inside of the basket using my template, and then I have my 4 pieces for the sides of the basket. And what I'm going to do is just give it a quick press, just to press out all of the wrinkles, and then we'll begin pinning it together. The fabric basket liner together. First, we're going to start with 2 sides. One side is right side up, and then we're going to place the other side right side down. And then we're going to pin one side of the basket liner. So this side is going to be left unpinned, and we're going to pin one side together. After it's pinned together, you're just going to put one straight stitch along the side there. Make sure that you pull out your pins and you don't sew over your pins. And as always, your fabric on the faceplate. Press the foot down, needle in place, first pin out. I'm also checking the stitch. I'm doing it on a straight stitch. This is a Brother JX2517, the official sewing machines for the Sew It and Show It workshops. And I actually recommend these to my students as well. So we're just going to begin sewing. Remember, stop, remove your pin, and continue sewing. Stop, remove your pin, continue sewing. Okay. And back stitch. Okay. Okay, so we have that seam, and now what we're going to do is open it up and then pin the next side together. Okay, so I went ahead and I've sewn all 3 sides together. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And then this would be the 4th side. Before we sew the 4th side, I wanted to put the hem that we removed, I wanted to put it back into the basket liner. And to do that, we're simply going to fold it over, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then fold it over again. And then we're going to pin in place. And what you can also do is you could take it to your ironing board and you could just kind of press it down, so this way it stays and you're not really fighting with it. So the first thing you want to do, once again, is finger press it and then fold it over again and then pin in place. And I'm going to do that all the way around, and I'm also going to take it to the ironing board and pin it and press it in place. Okay, so we have our hem lining, and all 3 parts are sewn together. So now we're going to pin the 4th side together, right side to right side. Make sure that your hem lines pair up. Pin your sides in place. And then take it to the machine and sew a straight stitch down. After we have completed that, then we're going to attach the bottom side of the liner. Okay, so we're going to attach the bottom part of the liner. First, you're going to turn your outside of your liner, of your sides of your liner, right sides down, and we're going to attach this side by side. Now remember, I did cut the liner, the bottom part of the liner, a bit larger than the actual template. So we're going to turn the bottom side of the liner right sides down, and then find seam and seam. So seam here, and then we're going to just place these two seams in the middle here. Okay, so here's one seam right here. I'm going to put a pin in place right there, and then I'm going to find the other seam and put a pin in place. So I'm going to have some excess, but that's okay, because that can be trimmed off later. And then I'm going to begin pinning the middle part of the side. Okay, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and just sew a straight stitch across. Okay, so I stitched the first side together, and I wanted to show you the two pins where the seams were. Those are going to act as your guide to tell you where to start and where to stop. So I'm going to remove them to show you. So where I started and where I stopped. So even though your bottom of your basket liner may be a little bit larger, you still will be exactly where you need to be. Okay, so we're going to rotate it and turn it to the other side, and then repeat the process. We're going to place a pin, one seam to one seam. Now one seam is already in place, so you don't have to worry too much there. And remember, it's going to be a little bit extended over because it is cut. The fabric is cut larger, but that's okay because you can trim it later on. So I'm just going to place one pin in this seam, and that's going to tell me where to start. And then I'm going to place a pin here, and that's going to tell me where to stop, even though I'm just going to meet up with the first seam. And then I'm going to pin it in place in the middle part of it. Then simply straight stitch all the way across up until we reach this point, and then we're going to stop. We're going to repeat that process all the way around to this side and then this side, and then we'll be able to turn your liner right side out. We did it! We made a new basket liner using the old basket liner as a template. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining in. As always, you can log on to sewitandshowit.com for more tutorials, and until then, I'll see you next time.